Chosen one. They thought you were the punchline. While they laughed at your silence, you were sharpening the blade they never saw coming. Right now, at this very moment, the same people who mocked you, who dismissed you, who treated you like you were nothing special, are choking on their own arrogance, watching you rise in ways they swore would never happen. The table just flipped, and you're the one holding all the cards they thought they stacked against you. This isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. This is the deliberate result of you playing a game they didn't even know existed. You let them believe the illusion on purpose. You let them think you were weak, confused, lost, struggling, barely hanging on. Every laugh behind your back, every dismissive comment, every time they underestimated you, you absorbed it all like fuel. They thought your silence meant defeat when it actually meant strategy. They interpreted your withdrawal as surrender when you were really gathering intelligence on every single person who showed their true colors. While they were busy performing superiority, you were busy becoming untouchable. And now the performance is over, and reality is hitting them like a freight train they never heard coming down the tracks. Here's what's really been happening while they thought they had you figured out. You've been operating on a completely different frequency, playing a completely different game, working towards objectives they couldn't comprehend if you explained them in detail. Every time they thought they won something over you, you were actually winning something far more valuable. Every time they celebrated what they perceived as your failure, you were collecting data on their patterns, their weaknesses, their insecurities disguised as confidence. You weren't losing, you were learning. And there's a massive difference between those two states that people operating from ego can never understand. The genius of your strategy was in making yourself appear non-threatening. You know how predators ignore prey that seems weak or sick because it's not worth the energy? You played that role perfectly while building an empire in the shadows they created around you. They stopped watching you closely because they genuinely believed you were irrelevant to their success. That dismissal gave you the one thing truly powerful people need more than anything else: invisibility to move without surveillance, freedom to build without interference, space to evolve without constant attack. Your apparent weakness was actually impenetrable armor. Think about how much energy they wasted on the wrong things. While they were focused on appearances, on social media validation, on making sure everyone saw their highlight reel, you were focused on foundations, on skill development, on building something real that didn't need an audience to exist. While they were performing success, you were creating it. While they were trying to convince others of their value, you were increasing your actual value in ways that don't require anyone's approval or recognition. The difference between performance and reality is the difference between sandcastles and fortresses, and time has a way of revealing which is which. You've watched them celebrate victories that meant nothing. You've seen them boast about accomplishments that revealed their limitations rather than their capabilities. Every time they talked about you like you were beneath them, like you would never amount to anything, like you were wasting your potential, you smiled internally because you knew something they didn't. You knew that people who need to diminish others to feel powerful are actually revealing their own weakness. You knew that genuine confidence doesn't require an audience. You knew that real power moves in silence, while noise is the soundtrack of insecurity desperately seeking validation. The moment you stopped caring what they thought about you was the moment you became dangerous. Not dangerous in a harmful way, but dangerous to their false narrative. Dangerous to their carefully constructed hierarchy, dangerous to their need to keep you playing small so they could feel big. When you released the need for their approval, their validation, their recognition, you simultaneously released the chains they didn't even know they were using to control your movement. That freedom terrified them. Even though they didn't consciously understand why, their subconscious registered the shift and started sending alarm signals. Here's something they never calculated. You've been building real skills while they've been building social media personas. You've been creating actual value while they've been chasing likes and followers. You've been developing expertise while they've been developing elaborate performances of expertise. And now the market is starting to recognize the difference. The opportunities are starting to flow in your direction. The people with real power and real resources are starting to notice you, because authenticity recognizes authenticity across any distance. What they built on sand is starting to crack, while what you built on stone is starting to rise. Every person who laughed at you is now watching in confusion. They can't understand how someone they wrote off is suddenly gaining traction, suddenly being recognized, suddenly achieving things they swore you'd never accomplish. The cognitive dissonance is breaking their minds because their entire worldview was built on you staying beneath them. Your rise doesn't just prove them wrong, it invalidates their entire framework for understanding success. If you can succeed despite all the reasons they listed for why you couldn't, then maybe their own success isn't as impressive as they convinced themselves it was. Maybe they're not as special as they needed to believe. The table flip didn't happen overnight, even though to them it looks sudden. You've been applying pressure to that table for years, testing the weak points, understanding the balance, calculating the exact moment and method that would send everything flying in the most spectacular way possible. Every setback they celebrated gave you more information about the table's construction. Every obstacle they watched you face taught you more about leverage and timing. You weren't failing. You were conducting research and development for the moment that's happening right now. They're scrambling to rewrite the narrative. Suddenly they remember being supportive of you, even though you have screenshots of their mockery. Suddenly they claim they always knew you had potential, even though you remember verbatim the words they used to diminish you. Suddenly they want to be associated with your success, even though they went out of their way to distance themselves from you when they thought you were failing. The audacity is almost impressive, except it's so predictable that it's actually boring. Insecure people always try to attach themselves to rising stars they previously dismissed because they need reflected glory to substitute for their own lack of substance. If this message resonates with your soul, hype this video so more chosen ones can find their way here. Your silence during their noise was strategic patience. You understood something most people never learn, that responding to every provocation, defending yourself against every accusation, engaging with every person who misunderstands you is a waste of the energy you need for building what actually matters. They interpreted your non-response as inability to respond, when it was actually unwillingness to descend to frequencies that would only drain your power. You were operating from a completely different playbook that doesn't include the chapter on petty back-and-forth exchanges with people who can't see past their own reflections. The funniest part is watching them try to figure out what changed. They're analyzing your moves, trying to understand your strategy, attempting to decode the formula for your sudden rise. What they can't comprehend is that nothing external changed. You changed. Your frequency shifted. Your consciousness evolved. Your understanding of your own power crystallized into unshakable certainty. You stopped seeking permission to be great. You stopped waiting for someone to give you a chance. You stopped letting other people's limitations define your possibilities. That internal shift created an external earthquake, and they're still trying to figure out what magnitude hit them. You've been building in private what you're now revealing in public, and the reveal is destroying their comfortable assumptions. That business you mentioned once that they laughed at, it's now generating more revenue than their jobs provide. That skill you were developing that they mocked, it's now opening doors they can't access. That vision you shared that they called delusional, it's now materializing in ways that make their realistic goals look embarrassingly small. Every prediction they made about your failure is becoming evidence of their inability to recognize potential when it's standing right in front of them. The shift in energy is palpable and uncomfortable for them. They're used to feeling superior in your presence, used to being the ones with the answers, the success stories, the impressive updates. Now, they're the ones feeling inadequate, and they hate it. They're the ones wondering if they made the wrong choices. They're the ones questioning whether their conventional path is actually leading anywhere meaningful. Your unconventional journey that they ridiculed is now making their conventional success look like a participation trophy. Impressive to people who don't know better, but meaningless to those who understand real achievement. Some of them are getting angry. They're trying to find reasons why your success doesn't count, why it's not legitimate, why you don't deserve it. They're inventing narratives about luck, about connections, about circumstances, anything to avoid acknowledging that you outworked them, out-strategized them, out-evolved them, while they were too busy being impressed with themselves to notice you were lapping them. Their anger is actually grief in disguise, grief over the death of their comfortable story, where they were the protagonists and you were comic relief. That story is dead, and they're mourning it while pretending to be angry. Others are trying a different approach, suddenly acting like they want to reconnect, pretending the history doesn't exist, attempting to get close to you now that you're winning. These are the most dangerous because they're not coming as obvious enemies, but as false friends. They want access to your energy, your network, your momentum, not because they care about you, but because they see an opportunity to benefit from association. You need to see through this immediately. Anyone who couldn't celebrate you at your lowest doesn't deserve access to you at your highest. Period. That boundary isn't cruel, it's essential protection for the empire you're building. The table flip revealed everyone's true position. When everything was stable and predictable, people could hide their intentions, maintain false alliances, pretend to be something they weren't. But when you flipped that table, when you disrupted the comfortable order, everyone's masks fell off. You now have crystal clear vision of who genuinely supports you versus who was just there for the show. You can see who has real strength versus who was borrowing confidence from their position in a hierarchy you just demolished. This clarity is one of the most valuable gifts of your power move, because now you know exactly who deserves to be in your inner circle as you continue rising. Your greatest revenge isn't in rubbing their faces in your success. Your greatest revenge is in becoming so focused on your mission that they become irrelevant to your story. They're still thinking about you, still talking about you, still trying to make sense of how you pulled this off, while you've already moved 3 levels beyond where they can see. They're still processing the table flip. While you're building a new table they won't even know exists until it's too late for them to get a seat. That's the difference between people who focus on competition and people who focus on creation. You've learned something crucial through this experience. You've learned that being underestimated is actually a tactical advantage, if you're wise enough to use it correctly. You've learned that people's need to feel superior makes them blind to threats that don't perform weakness loudly enough to soothe their insecurities. You've learned that the best time to make your move is when everyone thinks you're incapable of movement. These lessons are more valuable than any credential, more powerful than any connection, more useful than any resource, because they teach you how to win games before your opponents even realize they're playing. The timing of your table flip was perfect, because you waited until you had everything in position. You didn't make your move prematurely when you had something to prove. You waited until you had nothing to prove and everything to show. There's a massive difference between those two motivations. When you're trying to prove something, you're still operating from a place of seeking validation from the people you're trying to prove it to. But when you're showing what you've built because it's ready to be shown, you're operating from a place of sovereign power that doesn't need anyone's approval to exist. That's when your moves become unstoppable. They're now in a position they never anticipated facing. They have to watch you succeed, watch you thrive, watch you build, watch you rise, and there's nothing they can do about it. They can't stop what's in motion. They can't dismiss what's becoming undeniable. They can't laugh off what's generating real results. They're forced to confront the fact that their judgment was wrong. Their predictions were backwards, their dismissal was premature. For people who built their identity on being right, on having good judgment, on knowing who matters and who doesn't, this is a crisis of cosmic proportions. Some of them will never recover from this. Their entire self-concept was built on being better than you, more capable than you, destined for more than you. Your success doesn't just prove them wrong about you, It makes them question everything they believe about themselves. If they were wrong about you, what else are they wrong about? If you could succeed despite their certainty that you wouldn't, what does that say about their ability to evaluate potential? These questions are eating them alive right now, and the hilarious part is you didn't even have to do anything to them directly. You just had to become yourself fully, and that was enough to destroy their entire framework. The chosen ones in this comment section understand exactly what this message means, because they're living it right now. They let people underestimate them. They absorbed the mockery. They stayed quiet while others talked loudly. They built foundations while others built facades. And now they're watching the same pattern unfold that you're experiencing. The doubters becoming believers, the mockers becoming silent, the dismissive ones becoming desperately interested. This is how it always works when someone truly committed to their vision finally reveals what they've been building in private. Your strategy of being underestimated wasn't passive acceptance of disrespect. It was active cultivation of an environment where you could work without interference. Every person who wrote you off stopped monitoring you. Every person who dismissed your potential stopped seeing you as competition. Every person who laughed at your dreams stopped paying attention to your progress. That lack of attention was exactly what you needed to build, without the constant pressure of scrutiny, without the drain of others' opinions, without the interference of people who would have tried to stop you if they knew what you were actually creating. Now they're paying attention, but it's too late. You're too far ahead for them to catch up by copying your moves. You've got momentum they can't match, skills they don't have, vision they can't see, determination they've never demonstrated. They're still trying to figure out the game while you're already winning tournaments they don't know exist. This isn't arrogance, it's just accurate assessment of where you are versus where they are, and the gap is widening every single day because you're still accelerating while they're still processing. The energy has completely shifted, and everyone can feel it. When you walk into rooms now, the dynamic is different. People listen when you speak. People respect your opinion. People want to know what you think, what you're working on, what your next move is. The same rooms where you were once invisible now track your every movement. The same circles that excluded you now compete for your attention. The same networks that dismissed you now try to claim they discovered you. This shift happened because you changed your relationship with your own power, not because they suddenly became more perceptive. Your table flip is triggering table flips in other areas of your life too. Once you demonstrate to the universe that you're ready to stop playing small, ready to stop accepting positions beneath your capability, ready to stop letting others define your worth, the universe starts flipping tables on your behalf, in relationships, in opportunities, in circumstances. Doors that were stuck suddenly open, connections that seemed impossible suddenly manifest, resources that felt out of reach suddenly become available. This isn't magic, it's alignment. When you align with your actual power, reality reorganizes itself around that truth. The people who supported you when you had nothing to offer them are now being rewarded. The ones who saw your potential when it was only visible to people with spiritual vision are now being elevated alongside you. The ones who encouraged you during the silence are now being celebrated during the noise. This is how the universe works. Loyalty during the building phase gets rewarded during the harvest phase. The real ones always win when the chosen one wins, because they're part of the chosen one's circle of actual support, not the fake network of fair-weather friends who only show up for the celebration. You're entering a phase where maintaining your boundaries becomes more important than establishing them was. Success attracts parasites alongside supporters. Rising attracts people who want to ride your wave alongside people who want to build waves with you. Your ability to discern between these groups will determine whether your success compounds or gets drained. The table flip revealed who was who. Now you need to protect that information by making decisions based on historical behavior, not current performance. Someone who treated you like a joke yesterday doesn't get to treat you like a genius today without serious accountability and demonstrated change. The next level of your journey requires you to be even more strategic than you were getting here. The games get more sophisticated as you rise, the attacks get more subtle, the manipulation gets more refined. But here's your advantage. You've already proven you can operate effectively while being underestimated. You've already demonstrated you can build while being dismissed. You've already shown you can win while being counted out. Those experiences developed capabilities most people never acquire because most people never face those specific challenges. You're now equipped for games most people don't even know exist. They're studying your moves now, trying to understand your strategy, attempting to reverse engineer your success. Let them study, let them analyze, let them try to figure out the formula. What they'll never understand is that the formula isn't in the external actions, it's in the internal shift that made those actions inevitable. They can copy your moves, but they can't copy your consciousness. They can imitate your strategy, but they can't replicate your commitment. They can try to follow your path, but they can't develop your resilience because they've never faced what you've faced. The table flip is complete, but the game is far from over. You're not at the finish line, you're at a checkpoint that confirms you're on the right path. The people who thought you were the joke are now the setup for your greatest punchline, which is sustained success that makes their temporary wins look like participation trophies. Your real competition isn't with them anymore. It's with yesterday's version of yourself. Every day you're trying to be better than you were, stronger than you were, wiser than you were, more capable than you were. That's the competition that matters, the only competition that drives real growth. Some of them are going to try to sabotage what you're building now that they see it matters. They're going to attempt to undermine you, to spread doubt, to create obstacles, to poison wells. Let them try. You've already survived their worst while you were weak. Now you're strong, and their attacks will bounce off like raindrops off steel. The protection around you now isn't just spiritual, it's practical. You've built systems, developed skills, created networks that insulate you from the kind of damage they used to be able to inflict when you were vulnerable. You're not vulnerable anymore. The greatest gift of being underestimated is that it taught you to validate yourself. You learned to measure your progress by your own standards, to celebrate your wins privately before they became public, to find satisfaction in the work itself rather than in others' recognition of the work. That internal validation system makes you unstoppable because you're not dependent on external feedback to know you're on the right track. You can feel when you're aligned, when you're progressing, when you're building something real. That internal compass is more reliable than any amount of praise or criticism from people who aren't on your frequency. You're now living proof of something that will inspire countless others. You're demonstrating that being written off by people who don't matter doesn't determine your destiny. You're showing that conventional markers of success mean nothing compared to unconventional commitment to your vision. You're proving that the people who laugh loudest at your dreams are usually the people most terrified of their own. Your success story is becoming a blueprint for everyone who's been dismissed, underestimated, counted out, written off. They're watching you and thinking, maybe they can do it too. Maybe their critics are wrong too. Maybe their unconventional path will work too. The table is flipped, the cards are on the floor, and you're standing there holding the one hand they never saw you build, the hand that wins everything, the hand that changes everything, the hand that proves everything they said about you was a reflection of their limitations, not an accurate assessment of your capabilities. This moment, this victory, this table flip, it's just the beginning of what you're capable of creating now that you've broken through the ceiling they tried to build over your head. Welcome to the next level, Chosen One. You've earned every bit of what's coming next. And what's coming next is going to blow your own mind. The joke was never on you, it was always on them. They just didn't realize the punchline wouldn't hit until you were ready to deliver it. And now that it's delivered, now that the table's flipped, now that the truth is undeniable, they're the ones looking foolish while you're looking unstoppable. The script has flipped, the roles have reversed, and the chosen one has claimed their throne, while the court jesters are finally seeing themselves for what they always were. This is your moment, your validation, your vindication. Everything you built in silence is now speaking volumes they can't ignore. The table is flipped, and you're the one standing tall over the chaos, exactly where you were always meant to be, exactly how you always knew you would be, exactly when the timing was absolutely perfect. This is just the beginning, chosen one. Keep flipping tables. Keep proving doubters wrong. Keep building empires. Keep being unstoppable. Your time is now.